Good morning, Rob Moroto.
Good morning, Ron Pepper.
Well, we're here for a casual Wednesday morning
Yeah.
live Q&A. I don't know about you, but this quarantine thing, about 5 minutes ago, I realized I need to look reasonable, so I had to shave and stuff. I haven't
Oh
done it
yeah.
for
Like
so long.
honestly, if you want to start taking bets, people, whether or not I'm wearing pants right now, like let's face it, we do get to that point where we only dress from the waist up, and
Yeah, yeah.
if I'm as long as I'm looking good up here, then everything else doesn't matter, right?
But that's the norm now, right?
Mm-hmm. It is, but it's really cool. I found that time wise, when I'm with a client, I'm notoriously good at being on time or early for shoots and appointments. However, with my staff, I'm notoriously late. And if it's to a staff meeting or to a staff luncheon or even to a Zoom call, I'm always late. But the neat thing is, what I found out with these Zoom calls is that I'm not late because I'm trying to find a parking spot or I'm walking or I forgot where the restaurant was. And so instead of being like 15 minutes late for one of our staff meetings, I'm like 2 minutes late because my coffee machine is taking a lot longer than I thought it would.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about you, but I've been doing less of the online Zoom kinds of things.
Hmm.
So maybe that's taking effect. I guess not. Our norms have changed, and I get it became normal to be online in front of the computer more, and now that's actually shifted away. Maybe it's a cool cycle. Hey, since I see a few members of people coming on, this is a Q&A show for anybody to ask questions, but the first question usually comes from me, and that is, how do we sound? Because we were notorious for being my level's too soft and Rob too loud. So please let us know if we're pretty even or not, because I know it'll drive everybody crazy if it sounds like that. So hey, Karen's here.
Yeah.
We know Karen. Karen's like one of our go-to people on this. So how do we
Yeah, it's
sound?
funny. I just upgraded all my audio stuff as well, and it's fantastic. And
Cool.
I see you have as well. You've got a new. It looks like you've got a new mic there.
I've had this one for actually I've had it for years. I pulled it out during all this because we started doing this,
Hmm.
and it turns out it's kind of like an SLR camera. As soon as you get a camera with tons of controls, you wonder how come you can't get as good of pictures. You have to learn how to use it, and
Yeah.
the mic is the same way. As you got to adjust everything and get it set up. So, and then I just have the sound going into these,
Mm.
which are $30, I think, but you sound good on my end.
Okay. Perfect.
We
Yeah.
got
No. It's
one. We have one sounds fine over here. All right, cool.
Yeah, no, it's neat. I actually got the it's a Rode mic. It's a Rode USB mic, and it's
Yeah,
fantastic because you'll notice that I don't have my any headphones in.
that's what I was going to ask
So
you.
what it has is it has the microphone and then it has the headphone jack out of it. And so I've got my headphone jack coming out and it's actually going to my external speakers that are beside my computer. And you don't hear the feedback because it actually cancels that out. It's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah.
The It's wild that I can actually do this.
They're supposed to be made for that, so that because normally if the computer sound comes out of your computer, it echoes back and it drives everybody crazy. So
Hmm.
that's the main reason for using the headphones. But then that must, now I'm not a big audio guy as far as knowledgeable in it, and so I think that's a technology, isn't it? It's listening and then canceling that out. Is that what's going on?
Exactly. And you know what? The technology's gotten so good with this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I got it, I'm like, I want to hear if I what I sound like. And so I tried recording some stuff. I got my guitar out and I tried singing, and I realized that every Christmas I've been torturing my children and my wife with my awful, awful singing because now I actually can hear exactly what I sound like. So
Don't
sorry,
do
guys.
that to yourself. I mean, just when we watch these back, I listen to myself and I say, "Oh, that doesn't sound so good." Hey, before we get going, we have one question so far coming in. So you do speak Japanese, right?
I do. I do. I
Cool.
try.
I know I'd ask you, but I thought you just just a tiny bit. But I'll see you in clubhouse rooms, and it's all Japanese writing. So I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I guess he does. I guess
Yeah.
he does it.
No, it's
Cool.
funny. I go into Clubhouse to actually practice Japanese, and there's some really neat people in Clubhouse. I've met a lot of my own
Yeah.
clients in there. I've
Oh,
seen a lot
cool.
of other photographers there, and for anyone who's not on Clubhouse, it's like Reddit. You just get in and you stay there, and it sucks your life away, or sucks the
I've
hours out of your life. But you'll be
yeah.
entertained. No.
I do the same thing with Spanish. I go and I try to, and they have actual educational like help beginner and intermediate rooms, and then I also go into the photography rooms where they're just people just doing it in Spanish, and I try to keep up. And so I'm finding out exactly where my level is.
Yeah.
It's intermediate. It's not advanced.
Okay. Oh, we got a question here from Karen.
Yep. Yep. Let's put it up.
Okay.
Welcome, Karen. I see we have some people on. So the idea is ask us questions in the comments. The first comment should have been, but it doesn't look like it is.
Z6.
One second.
Huh.
Early in the comments, I thought I put this up there, but it didn't work. Here is a link if you want to come on and ask on audio and video questions and discuss. You don't have to. But ask questions in the comments and we will do our best. We usually keep it to real estate, photography, and photography in general. So Karen says, thanks for coming, Karen. I bought a new Nikon Z6, sweet, and need an all-around lens, one that zooms well. You don't have any Nikons, do you,
I
Rob?
don't do Nikon. I'm just
And
going to go on to the camerastore.com.
Karen,
Is my
I'm supposed to be getting a Nikon Z6 either on loan or I'm not sure if I get to keep it. I think it
Mhm.
depends on how many jobs I do for this group. But in
Yeah.
a if I, I was told it's kind of on its way and to look for the shipping information, but I haven't seen it yet. But
So the
maybe
Nikons,
by next time I have some details about that.
so the Nikons themselves, the Z is their mirrorless side, right?
Yeah, so actually we should do that. These are the mirrorless full frame Nikons, I believe.
Mirrorless
And
full frame. Okay, let's
yeah,
see now. I'm just looking at the camerastore.com for what they have for selection of the Nikon ones. And based on what we do for our business, ooh, that's tough. Okay, so there is a Nikkor Z 14 to 24 f2.8. And if that's anything like the regular Nikkor 14 to 24 2.8, that's going to be a fantastic lens. But also that's like $3,000, whereas you got one that's half the price. That's a 14 to 30 at an f4. So I guess my response to Karen then would be that if you are getting a wider lens and you're going to be using this for just real estate photography, the f4 is going to be fine, and
yeah.
likely, hopefully, you can find that lens on the used market for around half the cost. Otherwise, you're probably going to be looking at getting the 2.8, and the 2.8 is going to be great for two reasons. If you're doing weddings are fantastic with that 2.8, and I've shot a bunch of weddings with guys who use that 14 to 24. But as well, if you're doing video, you want the 2.8. So that's what my recommendation is.
Why is
Even
that?
though it's
Why is it different for the video?
what was that?
Why is the 2.8 better for the video?
Well, okay, so for example, when you're doing photos, it doesn't really matter how long you've got your shutter open. It could be 2 seconds, 30 seconds, right? But you can't do that with video because video shoots at 30 frames per second. That means that typically when you're shooting video, you want your frame rate. You want your shutter speed to be double your frame rate. So if I'm shooting at 30 frames per second, I want to be shooting at 1/60th of a second for my shutter speed.
Okay.
Now you can imagine if you're doing it at 1/60th of a second and you're shooting at, say, like what I've got going on here, right? If you want to shoot this scene, then the only other thing that changes is going to be your aperture or your ISO. So unless you want to be shooting at ISO 6400, you need to get a lens that can go down to 2.8. Does
Now
that make sense?
with yeah, with video you can get away with a lot higher ISO if I
Hmm.
understand correctly. Is
You
that
can.
that's a cool thing about being around the technical people is I understand stuff like noise doesn't matter when you're overlapping a lot of images, and when you're overlapping 30 every second, the noise doesn't really get isn't really noticeable because it's random. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, and it's random, but it's also neat because if you're shooting with the Z, it's essentially you've got a huge sensor that's now downsizing everything. So it'd be like us taking a actual
Yeah,
full high
yeah,
res image and then shrinking it down to what we would consider like social media sizes. You don't see the noise because at that size it's just gone. And
yeah,
if you're producing video at 1080p, great, no problem. But it does become an issue when you start shooting at a 4K. It does start to show up.
yeah. I
So
can see that. I can see that.
yeah. So if you're going to
Karen
be doing
says that.
video,
Karen says this is just for fun.
oh,
What did you come from before, Karen? Because if you had Nikon, you can just get the adapter and use all the same lenses. I understand. This is something I'm really interested in finding out about because the they have a couple $100 adapter. I understand, and then you can just use all of the Nikon stuff. Then you have the choice
yeah.
of getting those. I forgot what the mount is called, but the dedicated ones for the Z6 or the Z7. We use those.
Actually, it's cool. They actually have a 16 to 50 mil pancake.
Six, really? What?
Yeah. So that might be actually a fun one. And from in Canadian dollars is around $400. So I'm assuming that'd be around 300 in the States there.
How does that
So
possible? If a pancake that flat like a super.
yeah, it's super thin. It looks great. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that, especially if it's just for fun. But the nice thing is with the 16 to 55, you can actually do real estate photography too. So
Yeah, I mean, she says
heck,
not for
you
real
know,
estate, just for fun. But I wonder why not for real estate, or at least real estate video, maybe if you're moving
yeah.
up, either
Well, it is a
starting.
3.5 on the wide edge. So yeah, I guess you could use it. So, um, but it's funny these days. Technology has gotten so far that we can actually we can almost use our iPhones for shooting stuff.
Who would do that?
Honestly, you know what?
I'm doing
Tom,
that
I don't know if I've told you this.
for
We
video,
Oh, for video, yes, we do that all the time. We actually shoot a lot of video using an iPhone, and we're actually teaching realtors how to do that as well. And we've actually just released our online course for how to shoot real estate photography with your iPhone.
I'm
I'm
gonna
not
go
kidding.
over. I'm gonna go over that part ASAP, seriously, because
Yeah,
I need some help with video. I'm just not a video guy. Who out
yeah.
there's a video guy who's a video person that has tips for us? That'd be the good question.
Right.
All right, who has questions? I've got one thing I can talk about just because it's been on my mind lately. If we want to go over, let's see, we're trying to control this back office here. Oh, there we go. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, what I was going to ask you, what I was going to start with, if we need to, is skies,
Yes.
because I've been going through. I'm kind of working on something to go over some options for skies, and
Hmm.
the way I'm thinking about it is in this very general way, like. The problem being real estate photography often means you show up when you can, either because they tell you when and it's a
You show
bad
up on
time
your
of day
call.
for shooting, or if you're booked and you're just working them in, you just don't get to shoot at the best time. So when you see photos and they're getting critiqued and people say, well, show up at a better time, and that's really not an option.
Hmm.
Often. So what it is the problems can be that the sky's too bright. Maybe the sun is right there in your frame.
Yep.
Let's not even get into dusk yet. Let's just think about during the day, and because I think that's a different conversation. So I was just thinking that is what I've always done. I've tried not to. I've used sky replacement as my last resort, but I'm in California, so I get to that works for me a lot of the time.
Oh,
Usually it's a blue
you don't get
sky.
any rain there, do you?
Well, we do, but it usually less often than all that. And now, on the other hand,
Yeah.
I was in San Francisco forever, where fog is normal. Right in the middle of summer, is it's all foggy. So sky
Hmm.
replacement is a thing for sure. And it's just, in case anyone hasn't heard, it just got a lot easier. What, a couple months ago or a few months ago, where Photoshop added sky replacement, and for the most part, I think it works pretty well, especially if your standard is for real estate, which isn't always perfection. It's getting it done and quickly, and it seems to work pretty well. Compared to what I usually do is I'm a bracketing kind of guy. I've been into, I started from panoramic photography, bracket everything and use Fusion or HDR and bring it all together. And I've always done that for exteriors too. So even on a really bright day, I can just get the sky in there. It looks pretty good.
Hmm.
So I was thinking that those are my two main go-to, or sometimes, it doesn't need, sometimes the sky is just fine and you get lucky, or you can pull it out of one image. But my solution has always been to bracket and bring down the brightness of the sky. If there is any detail out there, it gets enhanced, because if there are a few clouds, it'll get enhanced, and some of the blue will shine through if there's a lot of clouds. So that's a really good solution. And I was just going to kind of throw that out at you and see what you have, other tools in your tool bag for doing
I
that.
I do, and so here's what I don't like about the sky replacement thing. So I've got I'm gonna just start sharing my Photoshop here, and so we've got a typical Calgary sky here, which is not that great. And you can go in, you can do your sky replacement, but the thing that I dislike is this: you've got that as your selection, as your standard selection. So unless you want to keep on using the same sky in every image, you're going to have to go out and shoot your own skies. And that's not a big deal. Shooting skies is pretty easy. It's a nice day out. You go, click, 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 turn, click, and you're fine. You got your skies there. The issue is that every time you do this, you're going to have to go in and select a different one if you don't want to have your photos going from, like, say you have like 7 photos of the backyard, and in those 7 photos of the backyard, it's always the same sky. What's going to happen is you're going to flip through them, and the foreground is going to change, but the sky is not going to change, and that's going to look really weird, right? And so we want to have variability, and the only way to create variability is if we randomize it and we make it so that it's variable. So what we've done is we've actually gone ahead and created this, where we have, let's see now, a brush where from here, I can just add a little bit of sky, a little bit of clouds to it to make it look just a little bit more natural. And I find that helps out a lot for us, just to make it more realistic.
So you brought in some of your own sky photo, right?
No, what it is
Or a
okay.
different one from Photoshop.
No, this is actually the sky replacement. You'll see here, sky replacement group. I'm going to delete that and start all again. So I'm going to go to edit, sky replacement. I'm going to change. I'm going to use the regular blue one here, and I'm going to go to OK. I'm going to grab the sky layer there, and just using my new brush, just go over it, and it adds the clouds to make it look more natural. Now, one of the other things
Nice.
that I found with the blue sky replacement is that it does this foreground color thing where it changes the color of your foreground. So I usually like to turn that off. I usually like to turn off my foreground lighting as well and just focus on the sky.
Yeah, the Photoshop is trying to do a lot of different things for you, isn't it?
Yeah, and quite frankly, it's really not necessary. Like, there's a certain point where it's not necessary, and so I like adding in this. I like adding in my own clouds just to make it look a little bit more realistic. Like, here's the thing: in Calgary, this is the type of sky that we got. I'm sure that in other places in the world, your skies are going to look a little bit different, and well, that's because Calgary is cold. Um, did you
And the
did you
sun,
know?
the sun is on the horizon about 10 months out of the year, right?
Yeah, and okay, so here's something interesting. Did you know that Fahrenheit and Celsius they actually converge at minus 40
40.
degrees?
I just
Yeah,
learned that the other day. I don't know why.
yeah. No, I was on a chat with somebody else and saying, yeah, it's minus 40 up here, and they're like, it's minus 40 down here too. And it was that one bit of solidarity that we had.
Wait, where was it? Where was it minus? Where was it minus 40 in when they use Fahrenheit? Who said that?
Geez, I can't remember. It's somewhere where that polar vortex hit the states as well.
Oh, okay, probably that Texas thing.
Mm. So
Um, yeah,
yeah,
cool. That's the interesting thing is you bring photos with snow in them to us, and to me, I mean, it's not that I've never been around snow or anything like that. We have that, but shooting real estate in snow, I just think is, I don't know. I feel like I'm talking to a guy in Alaska or something.
it's absolutely it's brutal. Like so we have this happen all the time where realtors come up to us and like, oh, you know what? Thank you for shooting the house. By the way, there's a school down the street, a playground, and there's like a mini mall there. Can you just get one shot of each of those?
Yeah,
In the summer, it's not a problem. When it's minus 40 outside, stepping out of your car with a magnesium body camera sucks.
now, sorry, I'm getting a sample out as well. Hang on a second. Um, the do you keep? We talked about earlier as a good tip from Rob is to build up a library of things like schools and malls and area things as much as you can, so that you have those with you and you can include them with when you do a shoot for a house. Would you would you have photos of those areas from no snow time? So you took them in the summer or the spring or something, there's no snow, and then include them in a package of images of the house
Yes,
that you shot in the snow?
yes.
That would
And the
be a little
reason
jarring as well.
it seems a little jarring, but there's how do I put it? There's things that you just can't shoot in the winter. Like for example, there's one place that we call like the Glenmore Reservoir. It's a reservoir. There's water. There's a beach. There's people playing outside on a beach. You can't get that shot in the winter because in the winter it's just closed. So there's no point to actually shoot that in the winter.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't apply to the winter. They wouldn't go there anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So we shoot everything in the summer that is an area shot because it just looks better, and we find that our clients like it more. There's only a few shots that we've actually taken where it is done in a winter scene, and those are things such as skating rinks, hockey outdoor hockey rinks. If there is a snow festival of some sort.
Right. Snow festival. So fun. Um, got an,
As we call it Sunday.
yeah, every day. Um, got a question about window pulls.
Hmm.
If you bracket and merge, how do you get the windows to look good without the panes looking black? That's a good one. I was looking for a sample that I shot window pulls, but I don't typically do that. Maybe you have something, but I don't typically do that. I've started experimenting with it, but that's all it is so far. But I pulled up oh, I gotta share my screen. I pulled up a sample of something that okay, so window pull meaning shooting a flash image to overexpose the interior, and and there's a Photoshop process to pull out the exterior. And that's a cool technique that I'm just working on sharing. That's a cool technique that where did I put the app? Where did I put the image? Here it is. It's a cool technique that people are using, and I still prefer to just bracket the heck out of it. I'm using one screen. Do you see mine? Hold on a
Yep.
second.
I got a few of your screens there.
Yeah, you know what? Hang on a second. Let me try something else. That's not going to work.
There we go. We
That's
got
not.
that nice vortex look going.
That vortex isn't going to work. I'm going to share the other screen, and then I'll just be hunched over my laptop like that.
Yeah. No, it's funny. We were doing
Um,
that vortex thing with the kids where I had a iPad and I was screen sharing mirroring that to our TV, and I showed the kids what the TV looks like in the iPad and doing that vortex thing. And the kids, they're really cool. They said, "Oh, I want to try something." And so one of my kids got in front of it and jumped. And then you could see this like delay of people jumping, and so the latency
yeah.
started to show up, and had a great time playing with that.
Oh my gosh! Don't get me started on the Oculus, where you can put on the phone or on a screen. You can see what the person is seeing in the virtual reality. I mean, that's really cool. And there's a little delay too, so it's a little hard to do. But
Yeah.
so I shared the other screen. This is easier. Yeah. So in a case like this one, instead of trying to do polls, like in fact, right now, just with the settings that I, okay, so I loaded bracketed photos in Photomatics. It's going to show you the bracketed photos. It's many. It's like 9 bracketed photos. So I went the route of really bracketing the whole scene. So it goes from dark, so it's even unnecessarily dark actually, and then bracketed all the way up through super fully bright. Yeah. So in doing that, I'm usually able now. I know what you mean, Karen, about getting those black areas around it, and it's just a matter of yeah, just usually using exposure fusion that I really recommend right now. This is using the realistic preset with some adjustments. So there's the preset where it looks a bit dark, and then I just added some. Just bring it up a little bit, and then you can. I like to use the black clip too, but it can be done in post processing. Excuse me, 1 second. Sorry. Getting that terrible sound when never mind. I like to do it with settings. Now, someone could have shot like 3 brackets, which is usually not enough, and then pull out the powerful flash, because there's a big space in this case, and throw flash so much that it overexposes these the window panes, and then that way, yeah, you can bring in the flash layer better. But I really like to just bracket the heck out of it, and I'll ask Rob in a second for an example of doing it the other way. If you have one, I can probably dig one up. I just have to just take me a minute to look. Also, when you're starting settings, oops. You can usually use these. The interior is a good way to do it, because it pays special attention to the windows for a lot of the reasons that you're meant to avoid the problems that you're mentioning. So that's what I like to do, is really just cover the bracketing. That means meter for the darkest areas, meter for the brightest areas. Set your camera to catch the whole thing all the way through. Here's a debatable thing, is to shoot at EV spacing of 1 stop, so just 1 shutter speed difference. So I took these are those 9 photos that I was showing you. It's all the 8 that fit on the screen plus 1, so I took 9. And I think, like I say, I think 8 would have been the necessary amount, but my camera, like most of them, you can choose 5, 7, or 9, so that's probably why I shot 9. So hopefully that shows what I mean. that metering is really important. There's a tool that you could try, hdrsoft.com/ev, and it has this nifty little shutter speed calculator. So you take your spot meter of your camera and you point it out the window, and that tells you whatever, like 1/1000th of a second. And then you point the spot meter of your camera at the darkest area, and maybe that says half a second or 2 seconds. And then you tell what your camera does. You click the big blue button, it'll tell you how to set your camera. So if you have one that doesn't take 9, you could take 2 brackets. You could do a whole number of different things that help you learn how to set the camera. And then it becomes really second nature after very short amount of times using it. What about you, Rob? Do you have any advice on window pulls?
You know what? I'm just seeing if I can pull something together here.
All right, stretch it.
Yeah, and one of the other ones that I wanted to actually look at was a different one where we talk about window pulls. Not window pulls, but we ran into this issue where we had this one client, and they said, "Well, thank you for changing the gray skies outside, but it's actually, we still need you to go back and reshoot it because it's the inside that still doesn't look good."
You mean because gray skies looking out the windows?
Gray skies looking out the window.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and so, unfortunately, that gray sky thing doesn't work on an interior one because it doesn't see it as a sky. So while I get the files ready for showing you what we do for let's see now. For window pulls, let me try and do this and show you this image here. I'm going to go to downloads, open with Photoshop, and I guess I should be sharing my screen because right now you're just looking at me with my eyes darting left and right.
Everybody's seeing us looking for photos. I had a window pull sample fairly recently too. I was just looking for that too.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we're doing in Photoshop here. And let me see. Okay, so this image here, the issue with this, it's gray outside, so it doesn't look that great. What we can do with this shot is when the how do I put this? The blue sky or the sky replacement tool is not going to work with this. But we have to be able to isolate all these windows, and you could go around and use your eyedropper or stuff like that, but that just becomes really tedious. What I like to use is going into select, go into color range, and then click on your highlights. And you can move that fuzziness to the point where it's just those areas that are outside the window that you're getting. So here, that looks good there. Then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to create a mask. Click on the layer. And then with a blue brush, I'm just going to draw in that blue sky. Now, of course, you'll notice that here, that's where the sun was. And so because of that, actually, do you see my mouse when I'm doing this?
Yeah, it might be a little small on the screen share, but I can see it.
Okay.
We can see that dented area.
Right. Okay. So with that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my mask. I'm going to go and delete it with a soft brush. So hardness is 0. And I'm just going to do that. Okay. Because that is actually brighter, right?
I like it.
All right. And then the other thing is I'm going to take my cloud brush again, And I'm just going to, whoops, here. How do I do this? There we go. I'm going to click on my layer here with holding command. And what that does is it shows what's already been highlighted. So it's only affecting that blue area. I've got my brush, and I'm now just going to draw my clouds back in. Okay. From there, I'm going to take my brush again. I'm going to change that so that I can get rid of some of these other areas. Like you'll notice here, the wood on those slats, it was brighter. So that's why it came out blue. Well, I can actually change those, and using I'm changing my brush to a black so that we're going to take it out of the image here. I'm going to change my hardness of my the flow of my brush to 3, and I'm just going to keep on hitting those until that blue portion just goes away and it starts looking a little bit more natural. Okay, and because I've already got that sky back there, it is going to start looking more natural.
I like what I want to point out as the, I feel like my job here is to say that this looks like, I like what Rob's doing here because it looks like magic. Like when people say, can you just Photoshop that? I mean, look how easy Rob's making it look. But Photoshop is one of those things where it can do it can do so much. Most of us know how to do what we do, and there's lots we don't know. And I guess what I'm pointing out is that what Rob's doing there doesn't take too much to learn, but you do have to be kind of deliberate about learning about what he's doing, why it works. So
have you played with this?
What's that?
Have you played with the lens flare?
Not in Photoshop.
No? It's actually kind of fun to do this because you saw where my light was there.
Yeah.
So before, after. Now it looks way too processed, but some clients like this.
Is that just I mean, a lens flare to me is for 360s and moves and stuff, and it's a cool thing. But I haven't done it in Photoshop. Is that a new?
No, this is one that's been around for a long time, and I find it kind of gimmicky, but some people really like this kind of shot. Like this would be a shot that you could use for the front cover of your brochure.
You can do it mild. You can do it milder, right? You must be able to control the opacity,
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And you can also change how it comes in as well, so you can make it a little bit punchier as well if you want with that.
And
there's so much you can do.
And not everyone's shooting real estate. There's good uses for having the sun rays coming in, and you can fake that sometimes. That can really be impressive for photos. That looks good. I like that one.
I like that too. Like the other one that I typically like to do is curves. Love playing with curves. So from here, I just open up the bottom end, brighten it up, and then the mask right now is on white. I'm going to invert that by pressing B. I'm going to use my brush here. I'm going to change that to around a 50% opacity. And then I'm just going to brighten up those areas there to make that look a little bit punchier. So before, after. Just makes the shot look that much brighter.
Yeah, I like that. You could use that for something that draws attention but isn't trying to be ultra realistic. Just something that, I like what you said about the cover image, for instance. That's a good idea.
And so yeah, there you go. Stop. So we got that. Would be great, but I don't use Photoshop. I only use one photo raw. On photo raw.
On one, I tried it. I didn't get into it. Um, these are good things to mention here. Well, on one probably has layers, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you know what? There's so many different software things out there. Like there's Lumetri Color, there's Capture One, um, and then Photoshop. I tend to do a little bit of Capture One just because I also use a Fuji quite often, and Fuji files look a whole lot better using Capture One than they do using Photoshop. So
Interesting. How?
that's pretty much the only reason that I use Capture One. Workflow wise, though, I've just gotten to the point where I know how to use Photoshop. It's like that old Jeep that you just know every nook and cranny to, and you just can't get away from it because you know everything about it, right? I probably could get into a Tesla and try driving it, but I think I'd get lost in all the computer stuff. So
Yeah.
sticking with the old Jeep.
Well, I think like without using, I'm a big proponent in real estate photography of avoiding Photoshop if you can, because there's not time. You want to batch process. Well, again, this is me. You want to batch process the brackets, and then you want to do some quick touch up on each one, and that should be what I would. Karen's asking about that, about doing batch processing. I assume you mean for the bracketed stuff, and then on one. So convert the raw in on one, preferably. Run the batch, and then do quick touch up on each one. Is what I would normally do, and uh, so the batch, yeah, I would stick to that fusion, because you're going to get the most consistent results. So when you batch, when you're processing HDR stuff, it's a lot of times it's based on the unique image. So it's if it's brighter, if the brightest areas are brighter, it's going to come out with different results than the next photo, which has less bright areas. So, for example, if the sun's in the image, or there's a bright window or not a bright window, those things. So it's going to look at those individually. Where exposure fusion is a lot less of that, so you get much more consistent. Because I think consistency is one thing you're going for. As someone thumbs through photos of a house, you don't want to just change the whole style of the images. So, so getting it very similar to start with is a good way to go. And then you just do a few tweaks with, for me anyway, normally, now I'm talking Lightroom style, but the black point, white point, contrast, maybe bump shadows here and there. But more importantly, it's a little bit of color. It's like, well, here you go. Curious to see a workflow on real estate batch process. Yeah, okay, we can do that in a second. That's what I was talking about anyway. So let me pull something up here. Go ahead.
Okay. So for Karen, one of the things that I've always looked at with photos is that you're never going to be able to get a perfect image straight out of Photomatics, and that's no slight on Photomatics. Photomatics is our main processing engine, and without it, my business would not exist. So the reason that the way that I look at it is this: when you're out shooting, whatever you capture on camera is almost going to be like, it's like shopping. Okay, you're grocery shopping. It's getting all the raw ingredients that you need to actually create your meal that you want to do later on. And then Photomatics is that one where it just puts the meal together and it cooks it, it's done. But once it comes out, then you have to season it. You have to season it so it tastes perfect. And that is where we bring in Lightroom, where you've got Photomatics bringing it up to that 80% point, and then the rest of that 20% you use in Lightroom. And for us, we've actually found that using Lightroom and then using Photoshop batch actions was actually faster and more effective for us to create perfect looking photos every time. And so, yes, Photomax takes us to that 80%, Lightroom takes us to that 90%, and then we've got this other last 10% that we use Photoshop for. So, time-wise, Ron's absolutely right. We want to economize on time, but what you can definitely do is start creating automations within Photoshop and Lightroom and your whole workflow to make it faster. So, for example, all those things I just showed you with doing the window pulls and adding the blue skies into windows and adding blue skies into exterior shots. I've actually made all those into actions so that when we go in, all I have to do is press one button, take my brush, stroke it across, and the image is done. Save, close, next. And when we start processing, we usually go out, we shoot a house probably around 30 to 40 minutes, get 50 to 100 photos, start processing. We let the computer run, and our computers run hot, for sure. But we let them run and pre-process. But the amount of time that we're actually in front of a computer looking at each image and making sure that they're perfect and everything, it's probably around 20 minutes to half an hour. And so you've got a half an hour on site shooting, half an hour actually in front of the computer processing. And that's roughly where we like to keep it, so that we're spending just about an hour, maybe an hour and a half total for a full shoot.
An hour and a half total is the shooting and the processing?
That's shooting and processing, not including drive times and not including the time that the computer's actually thinking. Because for us, the way we take we've got 16-inch MacBook Pros that we take with us. We go to a shoot, we shoot it, take the SD card out, put it into the computer, and then we let it start the batch processing. Like, even with batch processing in Photomatic, it takes time, but we can actually let the computer do that while we're driving to our next shoot. So we don't actually have to have it. We don't actually have to be there twiddling our thumbs in front of the computer waiting for it to finish that batch process.
Yes. And
as well, if anybody wants, right now what I'm doing is I am working through a whole bunch of training courses for my own staff to teach how to do all this stuff. And actually, if there's some volunteers out there that want to join in and preview some of these courses for me and go through my workflow and tell me what works, what doesn't, what needs revamping, I'd love to hear from you.
I've seen some of those, and anybody getting started would be super lucky to have free access to such a thing. Trust me on that one. To answer a question in let's see. So Jeff was asking, and this goes into what Karen was asking as well. First of all, workflow wise, screen back up there. Let's pull Jeff down and make his. So what I've got here is some new photos, and so I apologize for the lack of organization, but. Workflow wise, what I recommend, and this is all based on talking to people that make software. I'm not one of them, I'm a photographer, but learning really what the benefits are of each step of the way. I think I found what is the best tool for each step. Rob mentioned some of those things. I'll fill in a few gaps. For as far as raw processing, and you can do all of this automatically. You can, I'm using Lightroom, but this will apply to anything, is to, in the raw, grab, so I've shot bracketed photos of, in this case, I took a couple of flash photos as well, for what we'll talk about later, but I took bracketed photos and selected them all, and in the develop module, or your develop software, oops, I lied, I didn't select them all, I selected none. Okay, go to the develop module and do some of the basic things that should be done here is first of all of the tone type adjustments should be set to 0. Don't make any adjustments at this stage. Everything is arguable and or open for you to find your best way, but this is just kind of the starter way. So you can turn off almost everything. The exceptions are apply the lens correction. Usually the cameras are going to have profiles built in to the software, but in any case, do your lens correction. That means chromatic aberration removal. I thought something crashed there, but it didn't. And the correction there. So that's going to take care of any of the, doing that will take care of any of the lines being barrel distorted or pincushion distorted. In other words, they won't be quite straight. That should take care of that, and takes care of the chromatic aberration, which is the funny little bands of green or pink around the windows. All of that gets taken out kind of automatically. If you have any other adjustments that need to be made that are like that are related to the lines not being straight, not being level, this is the place to do that. Like in this case, I was a little bit off, so you can see like the picture on near the top right is a little bit skewed. So adding this lens correction there takes care of that. So those are the kinds of things to do on the raw process level. Turn off sharpening and some noise reduction. So those are those raw process steps. It's best to do right here. So if you have a whole set, you can just save them all as TIFFs, and that'll bake in all of those changes, and you'll have these really great starting images to work with. Then you can run the batch process. Now that can be in Photomatix Pro for the next step, or if you have Lightroom, there is a batch plugin, and what you do for that is, I won't give the details here, because since there are 20 different softwares out there, there's little details that are different, but basically you'll run the batch on your bracketed images. So in Lightroom, I can select, in Lightroom you can use the tools, so you can select all, and then the tool is under photo stacking and auto stack by capture time, and that's the kind of elaborate thing that it figures out that you took all these images within a second of each other and groups them together. Again, I don't want to go into every detail in Lightroom because you might not be using Lightroom, but one way or the other, you'll select the stacks and run the batch, and I suggest for the batch to use, oh darn, I shut down Lightroom. I shut down Photomatix already. But I suggest starting with going to the filters and choosing, I'll just start it over here, right click export HDR batch, but it'll give you the options of choosing presets, and you can filter it by styles. So we have a real estate filter that narrows it down, narrows the options down, so you can start trying them, starting out with realistic and natural. Well, these are all appropriate to try. So see what you like, and what will happen is you run the whole batch. So you walk away, have a cup of coffee, a nap, whatever your thing is. Check in on the homeschool Zoom meetings or whatever you got to do, and then come back, and you will have your images put together. The bracketed shots will be together, so you'll get something like this, so that it's pulled together, all of the bright and the dark, and depending what you're doing, like Rob mentioned, the final image is usually not coming directly out of Photomatix, so there is probably some details to fix up. Maybe not. Maybe your business is, this is the image, it's good enough for my situation, and you export it or you deliver it. Maybe like what I like to do is check the black levels and the white levels. That tends to add some good contrast. This one is a funny image with that lamp. It has some crazy lights going around. I might want to play with that. I did take some extra photos with flash in case I needed them, so I might use one of those to layer and eliminate this reflection of the light in the artwork over there. There are a number of things to do, but the point is that you'll find your post processing that you want to do for your business, and the possibilities are fully endless. So if anybody wants to ask details in that very, very general workflow, please let me know. I can pull up a layered one if you like. How are we doing on time? We're an hour.
Hours.
Oh, we
Oh,
we
now are we?
blow through an hour like nothing, don't we?
Yeah.
Why don't
So
you say something and check in with the crowd? I see some comments, and I'll pull up a layered image and just maybe
sure.
pull out a couple
Well,
tips.
looking at this, Ron, one of the things like we were saying, we always recommend that you use Photomax to get to that 80% point, and then using Lightroom to take it a little bit further, right? So in something like what you've just done there, to everyone out there, one of the things that you can do is you can actually take the settings that you've made on Lightroom there and make that into a preset and save that, and then just apply that to all the shots in that home, because
Definitely
presumably,
recommend that. Yes.
yeah, presumably one of the things that you can almost assume is that if you're taking a shot from one angle of a room and you don't change any of your settings and you move your camera to another area of the room and you take the same shot, then the same preset will look just as good on that second shot as it did on the first shot. So keeping that same kind of logic, if you've got the same house and the lighting conditions are the same and you're shooting it all the same, then you could probably use the same preset. So you could probably just go in, shoot it, batch process it in Photomatic, get it to that 80% point, take one shot and say, okay, well, this is the main shot here. Let's play with the levels in Lightroom, make a preset out of that, apply it to all, export. You can even
Well, I
make
would
it
say
that simple.
what I'd like to do is find. Okay, you hit two really good options there. Is making presets and making systems that work for in a general way always, and get you not okay. Let's see. If you want your presets to get you there 80% of the way, then you're going to have these very general settings that they don't go bad, but they just get you 80% of the way. If you want to get 90% of the way, you change what you do. So the ones that get you 95% of the way there are going to be unique to the house probably. Where if you're doing 4 shots a day, you might want to make presets that work all the time. So the presets just do the most basic things, like upon import, they do the lens correction, they do the color, they do an automatic white balance. They just do things that are very, very general. And then um, and then you can also have several options of presets that work in different situations. And so this is when you could go into Photomatics, not batch process, but pull up individual sets of images. Rob's frozen there. Pull up
Yeah.
individual sets of images and make multiple presets. I have presets for exterior, for interior,
Oh,
I
yeah.
have presets for panoramas, I have presets for heavy on the wood. Like there's a lot of wood on an interior. They can really, the red can really come out of there too much. So I have presets for that. So you're going to build it up over time. And I just really ask people to avoid trying to have a one size fits all. Did you have anything? I have that image. I have that image layered that I can show a couple of Rob Moroto tips that I've learned.
Oh, don't give it all
So
away.
I well, we have the color. So this is the color, and then I did your trick.
There we go.
So what
That
I
looks
did
better.
was no, in this particular case, I don't think it was even needed because I think I can make those adjustments pretty easily in Lightroom, just using the color sliders.
Mhm.
But that doesn't. But this brings me to my common point that I always like to make is that they're all different, and we're professionals, and we need to be able to identify the issues, good and bad, in a space, and have a strategy for how it's going to go. So that's one of those times where, hey, this isn't a time where I probably needed to pull out the flash. Look, there's no heavy bright window except way in the back, which isn't very important. So that's not a big issue, and the color wasn't a big issue. To me, the big issue was the weird shadows coming from that chandelier. So maybe anybody has any ideas on if that looks good or bad, or if I should avoid it, turn it off. I don't know. But anyway, just this is a Rob recommendation was to take a separate image, just popping the flash in a TTL, blast it off the ceiling, and let it fill in, let it get the right color. And so by doing that, I just put in the layer and used the color blending mode, and it actually comes out pretty kind of extra warm, in my opinion. A lot of real estate clients, I think, want that. What do you think?
If you're in Calgary and it's minus 40 out, warm is a good tone to have.
I just think that one went a little far, but that's
well, the other thing that you do,
no problem to play with that, right? I just turned down the opacity of that layer a little bit, and
well, the other thing you can do, Ron, is if you go on to that layer there, keep it at 100.
Wrong layer.
Yeah. Keep it at 100, and then right click on the actual layer, and you can do a camera raw filter. So that the shortcut key for that is Command Shift A.
Sorry, 1 second. Okay, where is I'm getting all manner of messages popping in now, right when I'm sharing screen.
Yeah.
Where is currently the there it is. Do not disturb. I think that's where I put it on. This is all changed for me. So I'm sorry. What were you asking?
It was just click on the color layer and then go Command Shift A. A is an apple.
Command Shift A. Select all. Huh?
Now it should bring up what is called the
Camera raw came up on my other screen.
Perfect. That's exactly it. The camera raw filter.
Okay,
so now this is the color layer, and you were saying that it was too warm. So what you can do is just go into your basic level there and change that so that your temperature is lower.
And will that update live?
Not live on there.
Okay.
So you just have to go OK, and
I can't really see the results in real time there. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So that has just changed the result there. So I personally liked it a little bit warmer, but maybe that's just me.
Now, if I go Command Z, undo works.
Yeah.
What I liked about that one is that the whites were indeed very white, but what I feel like I can just bring the opacity of that layer down right here.
Oh, definitely.
And that's a kind of a more quick and easy and live. I can see the results right away. Kind of difference. Yeah. Cool. And I also played around, just since we're here and we're just randomly throwing out tips, I took care of that. Let's see if I disable the layer mask, it'll show it. I took one of the other images that I had. What I did was walked around with the flash and took a few different angles, because I was getting, when I did the flash directly above the camera, I got some shadows of the chandelier, for instance, on the wall, and that messes with the color. So I took a few around, and then I ended up identifying this as a problem, and I just layer masked in another layer that didn't have that reflection, because I used the flash. So anyway, and then to do that, all I do is see there's the layer on the bottom, and then the layer mask on top. I just erased out the area using the black brush. It's a pretty easy one. Once you start doing that, that black and white brush on a layer mask is a go-to for tons and tons of things. We got hello from France. Hey.
I know it's interesting when you start getting to the point when you start getting really into real estate photography. One of the things that you do is you start noticing that there's so much more that you can do, and because of that, you actually have to ask yourself, when do I stop? And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because with some of my shoots, I'll base it on, well, how much are you paying, and what is this going to be for? And I've had some shots where it is meant to be their key image for the sale of an entire $150 million condo project. And for those guys, they need that really stellar cover image on their brochures. And so for that image, yeah, we spent an entire day setting up the show suite, and then probably an hour setting up for that one shot, and then probably another 3 hours making it absolutely perfect in Photoshop. And so for that one shot, I probably charged them around $500, $600, $700. I don't know. But it's a lot more than what we would definitely do for a real estate shoot. But if you think about it from the perspective of the client is selling $150 million worth of real estate and using one image to do it. So if you think about your marketing cost as being $800 for $150 million worth of sales, it makes sense. And builders and clients like that will pay for it, because to them, yeah, it's $150 million that they have to sell. So $800 to help sell it, it's not going to break the bank. It's actually going to be quite affordable. And so once you start thinking about it that way, you start looking at what some of these realtors are selling their properties for. And, I had one realtor come up to me and said, well, look, this is a $15 million house. I need better photos. I said, all right, fine. We'll go out. We'll spend more time setting everything up.
My day rate is.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You just
let me actually throw in. I was going to say, because whenever I'm in conversations like this, and a lot of back and forth, we tend to talk about. People talk about how to improve images so much that they get into what I would call architectural, and I think, and this is just me, but there's some kind of a fuzzy line about where it becomes the kind of image you're talking about, where you get hired to create something very specific for a different use. Mm-hmm. And it starts out with, and I'm just, because this is the image on the screen, if I had half a day to get an image and then I was going to spend time on it afterward, I would do things completely different. I'd start out by moving things around, like get the carpet out of the way and move the table so that it doesn't have overlapping items like the chandelier over things on the wall and the flowers. And it probably wouldn't be just me. It would be with an assistant who's setting up, maybe setting up lights to either to light the space or to accent areas. You'd start out with something very, very different, and so the expectation is something that drives the process. So the expectation is that you have something that's photographically attractive and makes the eye go to certain areas, and there are color differences. And where real estate, we show up, and this is what we've got to work with, and this is how much time we have to work with it. And if it's not staged, I mean, hopefully I know people are shooting houses that are staged, that are great, because a lot of what I'm talking about has been taken care of. Decluttered, spaced things out, very simple, what am I trying to say? Very simple furniture, compared to somebody that the place is not even clean. If you look on the Facebook real estate photography groups, and people like to post, this is what I showed up to, and it's like a pile of dirty clothes on the bed, and so it's an expectation. And so I guess I'll just end with one point, is that one of the things that goes into my workflow now is set the expectation with the client that place is ready. And I'm not there to, maybe this is a little bit that I can, maybe I can get away with my current age or something, but you can really tell people that listen, we need to have this place ready, and if garbage in, garbage out. If you want something good, it's going to have to start out looking nice. And anyway, that was my little rant about that, is don't go too far on all the post-processing. If you go too far, you're setting an expectation that might be outside of what you want to promise that you're going to deliver for a couple $100, or God forbid less.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. So the trick with real estate photography is producing a good enough product at a cheap enough price.
Yeah,
And
there you go. Good
so
enough, cheap enough.
there
Yeah,
is
I like
that
it.
really hard balance of getting your quality high enough and keeping the amount of time that you have to spend to get to that low enough so that it makes sense where you're still making money and they're still getting a great product, and your pricing based on your product is better than what your competition is doing. So it's a value proposition, right? Like you can be twice as expensive as the next guy down the street, but you better be twice as good then, or provide twice the value. And so there's various ways that we've been working on to work with that value proposition. That
Yeah.
that's
Hey,
yeah.
and we're going to wrap up here pretty soon because we can, Rob and I can go on, and we're getting comments and questions is great. I haven't seen any new questions now, but I'll bring up one that maybe doesn't have to be answered, but it's just kind of a good thought process. Is along that thing with expectations. Do you okay? Um, how do I even put the thought in my head that I haven't really organized? It just kind of came up. Is setting expectations with our clients. They set
Mhm.
expectations with us. We all require things of each other. The values are for photography are interesting because there's what you deliver, sure, of course, and how much you get paid to deliver it, of course. But there are other things like, am I easy to work with? Do if I get a if can they count on me to show up on less notice, or do I really require being I'm saying I for things to think about for everybody. Do I require them to go on and schedule on my scheduling system, or can I just take a phone call, or can I respond by text? Am I am I a yes person? Can I whatever you want, or am I the kind of person that says that's out? Come on, that's you're going too far here. You're paying me $199, and I can't. I'm not. No, I'm not going to do that. Do you say that nicely? And then does that expectation then stick? Do they stop asking?
Mhm.
These are the kind of interesting questions that I guess I'm just kind of throwing them out there to see how if people have different ways. I picture in my mind the young me just saying yes to everything and figuring out how to get it done. And then as I got busier and I got more experience and frankly more professional, then I was much more about putting my foot down and setting an expectation from my end.
It's funny. I've done the same route where it went from like, yeah, yes, I'll do everything, then to the no, I'm setting my ground rules, and then I've gotten to this point now where it actually feels more realistic and more reasonable, and I like it. It's what would I say to a good friend of mine? Because if a good friend of mine came up to me and says, "Hey, Rob, can you do this for me?" I'll, sure, yeah, let's do it. If that friend comes up to you and says that and asks for something that's unreasonable every single time, then as a friend, you can say, "Hey, you know what, dude? It was unreasonable the first time, but I did it for you anyway.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit unreasonable. Sorry, I can't do it for you all the time. All right." And if you build up that rapport, where let's face it, we are not in the marketplace where it used to be, where everything was yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and here are the contracts, and no, we are more of in an environment where we are more social, we're more friendly, we are that guy that people refer because hey, I got a guy. Here's a good guy to talk to. I know a person. This person's fantastic. I like working with this guy. And you want to become that person. And if you create that relationship with your clients like you would with a good friend where you have mutual respect, then all of a sudden everything works. And I have clients coming up to me all the time say, "Hey, Rob, I know this is not normally what you guys do, but can you do this for me?" I'll say, "Yeah, sure. No problem."
Right.
And or if they come up to me and say, "Hey, Rob, I really need this. Can you do it?" I'm like, you know what? I can't get my guys to do that right now because of the tight schedule. I can schedule somebody else to go out there and do that afterwards if that works. It's gonna, it'll probably just take them an hour and a half of time, so your cost is not going to be much more than this. And then they say, okay. And they accept the cost. They accept the fact that I've gone out of my way to try and make it work. And the fact that I just throw in the cost at the end saying, yeah, you know what, it shouldn't take more than an hour, or it shouldn't cost more than this. They respect that and they'll accept it.
Yeah, there you go. So we're coming down to is handling customer service nicely and being confident with what you do and what you know, and when it is time to say no, it's okay, and you try to say yes when you can, right? It comes down to always as usual is my kind of answers too, is it depends, and you work it out individually, with confidence, right? Mm-hmm. And we are in the age, I grew up in the age where rule number one, the customer is always right, and rule number two, when the customer's wrong, refer to rule number one. That's what we were taught in hotel business and stuff, and that is just not true anymore. I mean, it's just not true at hospitality places anymore.
Yeah.
What do you think, Devin? Is that true? We grew up in that together, and now they're still in it. But hey, let's cut off here. Did we miss anything, guys? Or did we miss lots of stuff? It looks like you've got a couple looks like you have a couple volunteers to help with the course material, including me. So at least 3 now.
Perfect. Well, definitely. Just go onto Facebook, find me. I think I'm the only Rob Moroto on Facebook. So
you are not.
I am not.
Moroto. No.
Oh. Good to know.
I had to at some time I had to find, I was tagging you, and it was strange. There were a couple of guys that came up. Yeah.
Really? Huh. How strange. Well, I look like this. So
and you can, and I assume you can go to robmoroto.com, and I assume you have a Facebook link there. No.
You know, I have not gotten many leads off of that website, so that might be why. Huh.
Well, a lot of times that's what one does. Is, let's see, you go. Hold on, let me use the opportunity to, because I set up the same. I set up one as well, and it has down at the bottom there. Right below the models on the beach, that has all the social media stuff.
I don't know if I've actually done that.
So let's go robmoroto.com. Moroto. Just want to say, okay, so you need to get your social media stuff on here.
Yeah, I've got a lot of photos, because remember when I made this site up, it was made just as a place that I could go to talk about photos. So yeah, I don't know if I've actually put on a lot of the contact stuff. I guess I should.
These website templates and stuff usually just have a thing you just drag in there, and you put in Twitter, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff, and it's usually pretty easy.
I'll have to do that. But
so
find me, and let's chat. See if it's we'll see if it's a good fit. Okay.
And if you have let's see, if you want to find out more about any of the HDR related shooting stuff, that's where my expertise is. You can go to Facebook. We started a Facebook group, Photomatics HDR. You can join in there. It'd be great. The HDRSouth.com page just has tons of info on how to shoot and how to process and things. And you can also go to the homepage and click up on the top for the whole, has like a COVID bar there, and has materials about how to get started, including a free license for the Essentials version for anyone starting out. It's kind of, you can try any free, but it puts watermarks on, but you can actually get the basic version. So it doesn't have batch and things, but it can help you get started. And that is a free version on there. We started that out as, during the 2 lockdown, we were trying to do something fun and helpful and nice to just make things, I don't know, help out a little bit. And now it's a year later. So here we are.
Oh my God. It's
If
a year
anybody
later,
has,
isn't it?
yeah, if anybody wants to share their just quarantine time experience in photography, I mean, I feel like I've been interacting again with other photographers. That part of that Clubhouse. If you're in Clubhouse, look me up, Ron Pepper. Um, Here we go. And I've been interacting and talking to other photographers again who are interested in all different things, mostly wedding photographers, of course, but all different kinds. And it turns out, I think the only ones that are busy are real estate photographers. So seems to be a good business to be in right now. So maybe if you want to share stories, we're all for that. Being social while we're in different levels of lockdown. Some people it doesn't really matter. I know friends of ours are really busy all the time, and other people are not. So yeah, share with us, and we will see you hopefully next time. Send some comments later. We can check them and answer questions later on. Or one last thing: support@hdrsoft.com if you have any questions about photography or whatnot. All right, that's enough stuff. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. We will see you next time.
All right. Adios. Todos.